And
You're listening to Peace Fund Radio with Ethan Dettenmaier and Adrian Paul, right here on LA Talk Radio.
good morning, and it is Christmas time, isn't it? How was your Christmas, Ethan?
It was fantastic. How was, excuse me, how was your Christmas?
Well, very busy.
Yeah.
You know, I had guests in. My wife was recovering from a dental operation. My kids were sick. You know, renovation on a house, trying to get that sorted out. So it was a very busy time, you know,
Yes.
but it was fun. I love seeing the kids, you know, go through the whole Christmas experience, you know.
Santa Claus?
Yeah, well, Santa Claus actually delivered all the presents this year. There was none from us, which, you know, that's okay. I mean, you know, the same thing with my mom was like, oh, get them something. I said, well, it's going to come from Santa. It's not going to come from, because they're just at that age, you know, especially my daughter, where she still believes in Father Christmas.
Yes.
And, you know, it's great to see that, but, you know, there's going to be a point when they're like, somebody at school is going to go, well, you still believe in that? So at this point, it's good to keep them believing in it. Let's put it like that.
Well, how old are they?
Well, 6 and 3.
Yeah.
We got a little guitar. My son wanted a guitar for Christmas, and we got him a little guitar, one of those junior guitars, and he's singing, and he picks it up, and he sings Jingle Bells on it.
Good.
Jingle bells, and playing the guitar. I'm like, whoa, dude! I guess you wanted this, didn't you? It's fabulous to see.
Uh-huh.
How you just hurt your back? I hear there's
Yes,
a
I
nasty
did.
rumor going around. What'd you do?
It's no rumor. I don't know what I did. You know, they say with back pain you actually injure it like days or hours before you actually feel it. So it could have been something days ago, but it's a terrible situation to be in. It's quite painful. And
Trust
it's
me,
only adding to my alcoholism.
Does that numb the pain at all?
A little bit, yeah. Which
Yeah.
is a terrible antidote for it, but it's all I can do in the evenings.
Yeah, I actually do. I feel for you there, to be honest, because I went through that the past few weeks, and it's literally what mine was a tight muscle in the stomach. Believe it or not, pulling the back out, the lower back. Yeah. So it could be something of that nature. And the masseuse actually helped me out. The chiropractor wasn't helping very much, but the masseuse helped a lot more to release that tightness. It could be something you did, overworked it, you know.
Yeah, it could be any of those things. It's very frustrating because it is crippling in a way. I guess it's a small thing to complain about given the state of the world today, but
well, talking about that, I actually spoke to Kimberly Moore this morning. You know, and she's been handing out Christmas presents to the homeless and to people that need help. She was actually telling me about a man that she delivered a recliner to. The story of this man, she says she watched him go from 55 to 80 in a short space of a few years because he's crippled basically, he can't walk, he has to sit down, he's in pain, his daughter's got asthma, she's got numerous things that they have to medically look after, and what she said, when he actually wanted to watch TV, and they'd sit him on the couch, and they'd have to put the wheelchair up to put his feet up, and that's how he'd be watching anything in pain. And they delivered a recliner. The recliner wasn't a lot. It's $130, $150, whatever it was. She said the look on his face, she said he was crying, the family was crying, you know, and she said it's probably one of the best experiences she's had because something so little, such a small donation created such a ripple effect for him, you know, that, you know, changed his life. And I think it really, when you come to this moment in time when you see things like this happen, you're like, wow, it didn't take a lot to actually make somebody really happy and really change their life, because this guy would be sitting on a couch trying to function, if you like. I mean, so I think that's is John. By the way, is John Beerley around?
Yes. Good morning,
John.
Adrian.
Good morning,
Ethan. How are you guys this morning?
Happy holidays, John.
Happy holidays to you.
How are things with the Midwest?
I tell you, this Thanksgiving and Christmas this year were about the best they've ever been for our family.
I like that.
Really,
That's
really
awesome.
Great. Really, really great. We have, my father had 9 siblings who have 23 kids who have almost 40 kids. So throughout both holidays, there were lots of cousins from various places in town visiting, and got to spend a lot of time with people I don't get to see very often, and it was really good, really good.
You know, I mean, we're talking about giving this year. I mean, obviously I actually want you to talk. I talked about Kimberly Moore just briefly right now because she's doing her Adopt a Letter campaign where she fulfills children's Christmas wishes and delivers them herself with her volunteers.
Yes, door to door. Kimberly is fantastic.
Yeah, she's amazing. We did the Adopt a Like campaign as well as the book campaign, which I think now beginning from what I understand, John, from your end, and I have my sources from our end as well, that we have some news regarding the donations of some books and some computers even.
We really do. It's fantastic. As soon as, on last week's show, we had Kimberly Moore and Lori Oppenheimer, who is, on the ground in El Salvador. She is a project manager for Kimberly's Adopt a Country campaign, and she's basically spearheading the Adopt a Like campaign as it's going on in El Salvador. And as Lori was talking about what they needed last week, I couldn't help but think to myself, we've got some heroes of the week recently that we've spoken to that might be able to help here. So we reached out to Christopher Cow from rebootforyouth.org, Emma Mogus from bookswithnobounds.com, both heroes that we've had on the show this month who are coming forward. Emma's going to give us some books, and Christopher is going to get some computers together for us. And then on today's show, our heroes that we're going to have later on in today's show are also going to get some books together for us as well. So it's really exciting to see that come together. We have some more heroes who we're going to reach out to. But so far, every hero of the week who we have reached out to for help has immediately said, what do you need and where do we need to send it? They're really excited to help out, and I think when they looked at Kimberly's site and see that she does do what she does, goes door to door to fulfill these kids' wishes in person as often as she can, they wanted to do what they could to help her out.
Well, really this. I was talking to Kimberly this morning, and the idea is to create libraries in El Salvador, small libraries for villages and communities, where you're not just giving the books away, but they'll be in a place where many children can look at them and read them over the years to come. And I think that's the important thing. So that We'll be announcing that on our show as well as to what we're going to be calling that, because it started off with, have a couple of books and can you help us here? And it's turned into a lot more, which is great, especially during the holiday season where people give so much. And I think that's a real testament to the American public as well, because I think they really do reach out and they're very generous with their time and their giving. So I think we'll be putting more of that out today. And John, by the way, you can actually reach out to Kimberly directly to set that all up, and I'll be talking to her later on today. I do want to come into what's in the news right now. Our thoughts really are those with the storm-affected areas, because it's been a wild week of weather across the U.S. with heavy rainfall and flooding and tornadoes affecting areas across the Southwest all the way through to the Midwest. Have you had any problem with that, John?
We have had tons and tons of rain. For example, this past weekend, Saturday and Sunday, the yearly temperature average, historical average for temperatures is 43 degrees right now. We had 68 on Saturday, 70 on Sunday, and massive rains. We had some water in our basement, but no damage. Just, we have a little bit of water, but not a lot of damage. But there were some areas around who had quite a bit of water damage, roads closed, and we didn't get it nearly as bad as what some of the surrounding states got.
Right, because
the temperatures have been crazy high for this time of year.
At least 69 tornadoes have touched down in the United States in just the past week. It brought also snow and ice and winds to many states, and there have been an estimated 49 weather-related deaths in the past week across the country, which is such a shame, especially during the Christmas period when it's all about giving and having fun with your family. Most of the severe storm system was blamed for 35 deaths, 13 in Missouri, 11 in Dallas, and 5 in southern Illinois, 5 in Oklahoma, and at least 1 in Georgia, many of who died in their cars when they were swept away by floodwaters. Hundreds of roads across the southern states have also closed because of the flooding, ice, and blizzard conditions. It's actually affected more than 18 million Americans living in these areas, with flood warnings this is based under the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administration, who quoted this on Tuesday. So our thoughts go out to you guys out there. I hope you stay safe, stay dry, and we want to continue what we are doing this morning, which is our Children in Need segment. Obviously, our focus has been on education the past month. We're going to be giving away our 90 tablets in connection with the LAUSD. We're going to be delivering those in the next couple of days to set that up, and then the competition will start in earnest. And it's very simple. The schools have to create a project, whether it's online or whether it is a collage of photos and comments, basically telling us why do they think that having a tablet in their classroom or having these tablets in their classroom would further their education and change the way they look at being taught and how it would affect them. And at that point, we will then choose the winners, and I will personally deliver these to the 9 teachers who will be picked from the many teachers who will be donating entering this competition. So that is on the way as well. We will have a lot going on. We also yesterday I had a discussion with our web designers. It looks like mid-January, the 15th or the 18th, is when we're going to be having another new launch for Peace Fund, for the Peace Fund. It will be our launch going on that will highlight a lot of the things we've already done, new stuff on there. You can have a look around about it, but we'll bring you up to date with all that stuff. Let's just talk about poverty and education. Ethan, you actually have dealt with, and I know you're in pain this morning, so you've dealt with a lot of poverty. You've seen the people downtown, etc. I mean, poverty affects kids with high degree of instability. Not having poverty basically it stabilizes students the most basic needs, food and shelter. I mean, I know you deal with that a lot.
I do, actually.
And I mean, the homeless kids you deal with, does it come from that really is poverty as well. And I was saying to Kimberly this morning, it's such a shame that even in Los Angeles, one of the wealthy cities of the world, or the glamorous cities of the world, we have so much poverty.
Well, very few people care. I deal with ignorance more than I deal with poverty. I deal with misrepresentation of the facts, faulty impressions of what the situation is, and quite frankly, a lot of self-absorbed, citywide politicians and people that are on an epic scale of self-indulgence. Do
you think also, though, it's such a large thing to handle that it would be it is a large problem that we don't necessarily see?
I think people make it out to be a larger problem than it actually is. I mean, a simple act of kindness daily would probably reduce it greatly, but most people just don't want to get involved. They make excuses for getting involved. Or they just don't know where to start. But it's not the problem I think people make it out to be. I mean, the problem can be solved overnight if legislation would slightly change or if people's motivations would slightly change.
Well, it's funny because I was actually talking to Kimberly this morning, and she was talking about, the people that have been donating for her Adopt a Light, and, people have asked, her volunteers, etc., who have asked to help and how they can help. She says, it's interesting because all the people that I know that have a considerable amount of money, or that have not donated a thing, and there's all the people that have nothing are collecting donations around their communities to help out other people that are in the same situation. So I find that an interesting fact. Why do you think that is?
Why do I think what is?
Well, exactly? Why do you think people that are poor are out there helping to raise money, whereas the people that are not necessarily could quite easily write a check for $25,000 or $10,000 or even $5,000 are not doing it?
Probably because they have a realistic sense of what's going on and what they're threatened by versus people who live in a tank.
Exactly. They've lived it and they understand how it feels, and I think that sometimes it doesn't take as much, I think, as we think it does to help someone else. And I think if you've lived that life and you understand it, you know that. But I think some people just get overwhelmed by the thought of, well, I don't know who to give to, so I just won't give to anybody, which is fortunately something that doesn't plague our heroes of the week, who just pick problems and do what they can to solve them to great results.
I find it very interesting because, I look at house prices. as a simple gauge. I mean, you have some homes that are so expensive, and I'm like, how do people afford this? Because now what ends up happening is that you have both parents go to work, and one or both parents sometimes have 2 or maybe even 3 jobs just to survive at home, and frequently there's no time or energy left over for reading, which is probably should be the number one priority, because children need to see books in their homes. They need to see that adults value reading and learning so that they can get out of the trouble that they are actually in. It's you got negative effects of poverty. Is usually based on people that can't read, and we've talked about it before. How reading will affect adults later on in life, and most of the people in the juvenile system and the prison system cannot read, and that's why they're in that, because they turn to something else, because they haven't had the ability to or the opportunity to learn. And this is something really basic, which some of these parents have 2 or 3 jobs and they can't. So how do you deal with that? I mean, any thoughts on this? I mean, literacy is the most basic need that must be met before these students can learn. Silence on the phone. Any of you out there, if you have any...
No, I've been talking for like 30 seconds and my microphone was
you were talking to yourself, John, were you?
Oh, gosh, I was.
Actually,
it was a great conversation.
I want to also put it out to our readers, our listeners, if anybody out there is listening and anybody has any thoughts on this, you can obviously tweet us or send us a note through Facebook, and we'll have a look at it and see what comments you guys have out there. John, sorry, what were you saying?
Oh, I was, a lot of our heroes of the week these past few weeks, I feel like have really been addressing this problem as well. You can go back, go to our blog.thepeacefund.org, and just look at the episode posts from just this month alone, and you can go back and listen to some really great interviews that some of our heroes of the week have done about where they've gone into areas that don't have access to books, and they've delivered those books there and seen some real changes in the kids' ability to learn, their desire to learn, their willingness to learn, just by having some books available. So I think it's exciting that they're able to do that, and hopefully we'll have some updates from Kimberly Moore and Lori Oppenheimer about how that goes in El Salvador over the coming months as well.
I mean, when you're looking at it, the majority of children in the American public schools now are low income. That's the majority. And which basically has a major implication for the future of the nation's workforce. It's later on in another 20 years, you're going to find that the workforces can't read. They can't operate things. They can't, which is going to be problematic. There's a study done, but it was basically the share of school kids who qualify for free or reduced lunches crossed the 50% threshold in 2013, according to the recent Southern Education Foundation report, which compares to fewer than 32% in 1989. So we're going up, which basically means we're getting poorer. Students eligible for subsidized school lunches come from families who are in poverty or are just above it. A child living with a single parent would qualify if the family's income was less than $28,000. A family of 4 would receive free or reduced lunches if their income was less than $42,600. So there is a reason. So you can see where the numbers are going. And when you're talking about these numbers, how on earth, if you're earning $28,000 a year, can you afford to buy a $400,000 home or qualify for that, because the banks are not going to give it to you? And it then causes a lot of other things, which is low income housing, and that's a whole nother thing. According to this report, there are 3 main reasons behind the increase in low income. Though the economy is recovering, it's not producing enough good-paying jobs to lift families into better financial situations. The growth in immigration is bringing more low-income children into the school system, and higher-income families are having fewer kids. Isn't that interesting? Higher-income families are having fewer kids. So that means there are less kids in the schooling system and more kids that come from low-income families in the actual schooling system and applying for the subsidized school lunches. Here's some facts for you. The latest data collected from the states by the National Center for Education Statistics, the NCES, show that 51% of the students across the nation's public schools were low income in 2013. While poor children are spreading across the country, concentrations are highest in the South and in the West. 13 of the 21 states with a majority of low-income students in 2013 were located in the South, and 6 of the other 21 states were in the West. So the South has the majority of the issues here. Mississippi led the nation with the highest rate, 71%. Almost 3 out of every 4 public school children in Mississippi were low income. That's staggering.
That's staggering.
That's staggering when you think about it. 3 out of every 4 public school children in Mississippi were low income. The nation's second highest rate was found in New Mexico, where 68% of all public school students were low income in 2013. More than 30 million children are growing up in poverty. In one low-income community, there was only one book for every 300 children. Imagine doing that. How do you share a book amongst 300 kids?
I can't even imagine. I can't.
How do you do that? I mean, what does that book? I mean, the book would be trashed within a week if every kid had to read it. I mean, totally gone.
I don't know the full context on that statistic. I mean, surely. I mean, I guess if that's for the entire school.
Well, this is
surely that's
in one low income community. There was only one book for every 300 children. So based on that, I would imagine, because it's basically stating that 30 million children are growing up in poverty in the United States.
Okay.
So in one community, this was what the statistics were. There's another one, basically, and that then takes us to the next level, which is it takes us to, okay, the kids can't read. What then happens to them? Well, here are some more statistics. Dropout rates of 16 to 24-year-old students who come from low-income families are 7 times more likely to drop out than those from families with higher incomes.
Plus, you have higher numbers of absentees at school. Kids
Correct.
who don't go to school altogether because they're more likely to have to work or care for family members. And we've had Heroes the week before talk about the reason that they got into literacy to promoting literacy was because they had kids in their classes who hated reading. Not because they didn't like to read. It's just because they were so ashamed that they couldn't.
Yeah, well, I mean,
they just kind of turned away from it.
And that comes down to the comment I made earlier on, which is the parents who don't have time to give their kids the books or don't have time to read for them. I mean, with my kids, even just sticking a book in front of them, now my daughter reads to my son, and in a way, I mean, they read. She reads now. She's now reading and writing. Her beginning stages of it, and. It's amazing to watch how kids will help each other as well. That's why I'm going to reinstate our interactive school reading program early in the new year, which I'll be bringing you more about that, because I think having this issue is a simple fix for it, and there are the resources out there to fix it with a little help from communities and parents alike. And here's one more statistic that I want to bring you. Children that live below the poverty line are 1.3 times more likely to have developmental delays or learning disabilities than those who don't live in poverty. School funding. Obviously, we've talked about this before. School funding. I mean, a lot of schools are losing their funding for things like books or musical programs or the arts. I mean, I know a lot of the arts have suffered, and only long-term solution for poverty might be good education. A good education is seldom available to children living in poverty. So it's a catch-22 situation. Is it catch-22?
Catch-22. Yeah, one of our Heroes of the Week actually just won a Nickelodeon Halo Award for Ethan Cruikshank from Music to My Ears. He was the young man whose school basically canceled the music program. So he got all of his musical mentors that he had met in his own life as he learned various instruments, other students, any adult he could find who had musical knowledge and was willing to work with the kids after school to teach music. And they've taught tons of kids how to play instruments after the school had to shut its music program down because they just couldn't afford to have it anymore.
Well, it's funny you're actually talking about that, because the amount that's spent on education has not kept pace with the rise in child poverty. And there's actual social science research over the last few decades has shown that 2/3 of students' achievement is a product of out-of-school factors. And that's one of the things we talked about, why it's more pressure on the parents, because now they have to put their kids in out-of-school programs to get them to where they might have been 50 or 100 years ago.
Right.
It's one of the most important things that we don't really think about, is that we have to spend so much more time taking our kids to a reading class or whatever classes we give. I mean, to some extent, there's a martial art class, the soccer class, the basketball class, the ballet class, the gymnastics class, whatever. But you're giving them a slightly different education, whether it's a physical education class, which sometimes in some schools also does not exist because of lack of funding. So it's something that you mentioned, John, which I think is actually true, these out-of-school factors. Now, I know that we had Kevin Sorbo's organization, A World Fit for Kids, with Normandy Nye. They have a great after-school program where they go after school to help kids. And I know they just had a fundraiser, actually. I didn't have time to actually go to it. But there are organizations out there that actually do help. Let's talk about it very simply. Kids who experience destitution, in other words, poverty, and all the problems that come with that, have just about enough trouble surviving rather than they do actually succeeding in school. So what do we fix first? Do we fix the poverty? Do we fix the school problem? I mean, that's a question I think we have to ask ourselves.
And actually, Adrian, you had mentioned Kevin Sorbo's World Fit for Kids. If you go back on our August 12th, 2015 show at blog.thepeacefund.org, you can listen to that episode where Hovik Kasamanyan, who's the Director of Operations for World Fit for Kids, came on and talked about some of the really cool after-school programs they've got there. They had some really innovative ideas.
Yeah, I like them. They're actually they're very, very cool. I actually wanted to bring a couple of other things because I was actually looking at this now as we were looking at it. Where did I have my notes? Oh yeah, here we go. It basically states that while the U.S. economy continues to improve, one area still feeling the squeeze is the K-12 public school spending. The Center on Budget and Policy Priorities found that 34 states are contributing less funding on a per-student basis than they did prior to the recession years. Now, isn't that funny? Why would that be? Since states are responsible for 44% of total education funding in the U.S., these dismal numbers mean a continued crackdown on school budgets despite an improving economy. Why would that be? If our economy is improving, should there not be more funding for the schools, especially for things like books, which would seem to me to be a very simple thing to try and get kids out of poverty because they're learning more and they're actually able to later on have better lives, including helping the American economy in the basic jobs that this country is actually is structured on. The auto industry, the gas and oil industry, any of those other industries that basically hold this country together. We've got to think about that. Talk a little bit about our heroes of the week, John. I know we have them coming on shortly. Let's talk a little bit about them.
We do, and as I mentioned earlier, too, they're going to be helping us out with Kimberly Moore's initiative as well, so that's really exciting. All throughout the month of December here on Peace Fund Radio, we've been talking about the importance of youth literacy. And today's heroes of the week, Harper and Maggie, are sisters who have found a unique way to combine the power of words with the gift of warmth. Their organization is called Books and a Blanket. You can find it at booksandablanket.com. Harper and Maggie are joining us today to tell us how they promote literacy and well-being among students who are in need. It's a wonderful little program, and they'll be joining us here just a moment.
Okay, so Ethan, if you could work your magic and get them over there. There's a few organizations in the meantime that I want to give a shout-out to. DonorsChoose.org is one of them, and AdoptAClassroom.org is another, and I will talk about them in a very short moment. Let's see if we can get Harper and Maggie on the phone. If they are, hello, is Harper and Maggie there, please?
Hi,
who's this?
this is Maggie.
Hi, Maggie. This is Adrian Paul and Ethan Dettenmaier and John Beerley from Peace Farm Radio. How are you doing this morning?
I'm doing well, thank you. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well. Very well. How's Harper? Is Harper there?
Hi.
Hi, Harper. How you doing?
Good. How are you?
I'm good. Where are you guys calling us from this morning? Or where are we calling you from this morning, should I say?
We live in College Station, Texas.
College Station, Texas. Have you been affected by all the rains and stuff?
No.
No, not too bad. That's good. Well, that's good. Harper, how old are you?
I'm 12.
You're 12, and Maggie, you?
I'm 10 years old.
You're 10 years old. That's awesome. How did you become interested in reading? What made you get into reading?
We read a lot when we were younger, and since then we've always liked to read.
Yeah. So what do you like to read? What are your favorites?
I like Little Woman.
You love which one was it?
Little Woman.
Little Woman. Okay. And how did the idea for Books and Blanket begin?
We knew that some of the kids at our school didn't have many books or blankets at their house, and we wanted to do a family project. So we decided to put 15 books and a blanket into a crate and send them off to kids.
Oh, that was really nice of you. Now, what made you? So it was just the kids in your school that you sent them to start with?
Pardon?
Did you send them to the kids in your school to start with? Is that how it started?
Yes.
And now it's how old were you when you founded it?
I was 9 and Maggie was 7.
Wow, that's awesome! You were that young and you wanted to do that. I think that's an awesome thing to do.
It's amazing.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Thank you.
Maggie, what was your first event?
We had a lemonade stand where all the profit went to books and a blanket.
Okay, how much did you raise? Can you remember?
No.
It was that long ago, wasn't it? Harper, where did you get your book? Where do you actually get the books and the blankets from?
Well, people donate used books and new blankets to us.
Okay, and how and where do you distribute them? You distribute them from your home, or how do you do it?
We go to schools and give them to the kids, and the schools are in College Station and surrounding areas.
And what type of books are they? Are they for different grade levels?
Yes, we give the books to the kids depending on their grade level and their gender.
Depending on okay, so you and next thing is what age groups do you actually focus on? What how old are the kids you help?
From pre-K to 6th grade.
Pre-K to 6th grade. That's awesome. How have you done this Christmas, by the way? How was your Christmas?
It was good.
Is it good? Did you get everything you wanted?
Yes.
How many books and blankets have you delivered over the years?
We delivered over 30,000 books to kids in need.
Oh, my goodness. That's awesome. 30,000 books. Do you deliver them personally?
Sometimes we give them to the school counselor is who we usually work with to give them to the kids because she or he knows who they're giving them to, and or sometimes we'll just hand them directly to the kids.
That's great. And what's their reaction? Are they happy for it? Are they like, oh, I don't know what this is? What's their reaction?
They're always really excited, and sometimes they try to just pick one book, and when we tell them it's theirs, you see a big smile on the kids' faces.
Well, you also, one other thing that not a lot of people know, you guys speak Spanish as well. Where'd you learn that from?
We started learning Spanish at school, and we are both in the dual language program.
Do you like using dual language?
Yes.
Yeah, it helps a lot, actually.
Yes.
How do you think that being able to speak Spanish helped you when you founded Books and Blanket? Was that a help at all?
Yes. At some elementary schools, we have given to kids who mostly speak Spanish, and I was able to speak Spanish with the kids.
Do you give them English books or do you give them Spanish books?
We give them English books, so that way they can learn to speak English too. If somebody if the school counselor or one of the teachers asks for some Spanish books, then we'll give some Spanish books to some of the bags.
Okay. Well, we're about to be sending some books to El Salvador, and the funny thing is, when I spoke to Kimberly Moore, who's is going to be going down there to on Adopt a Light campaign, as well as creating this small libraries for different communities down there. She said, most of the kids actually want to speak English. They speak Spanish normally, but a lot of the books actually they want to speak English. So that's going to be interesting. And John said to me that you were going to donate some books. Is that true?
Yes.
That's awesome. Thank you so much. And I'm sure Kimberly will be very happy about that, as well as Lori Oppenheimer, she's actually a member of Congress down there, and she's helping set up this program as well. And I think, what the great thing about Peace Fund Radio is what you girls are doing. You're bringing a lot of people together to help a lot of people, and I think we can always really do that. Maggie, do you hear many stories about how the kids you've helped are doing now once you've donated the books?
Yes, we've gotten letters from a parent and a school counselor telling us thank you, and also letters from kids telling us thank you. And so that was really cool to get to read them. So
it's interesting. These kids can't read. Can they write as well? Or is it do they get their help from their parents and tutors to actually send the letters to you?
Well, the older kids could write, but some of it was it wasn't like correct grammar and stuff, but we could understand what they were saying.
Right. Do you think the books and that will help them?
Pardon?
Do you think the books will help them with their literacy?
Yes.
What do you think the biggest obstacle is to literacy, to a child being able to read, or be able to read and write? What do you think the biggest obstacle is?
Not having enough books at home. Yeah,
I agree. My children basically read all the time, and it's amazing what it does to them in their vocabulary when they speak to people, and how they understand things. And I think you're right. It's very, very, very important. How do you think? I'm going to ask you a couple of two other questions. How do you think we can overcome this obstacle? What will be your solution?
Well, the best way to overcome it would be to read, because whenever you read, it can take you somewhere else, and it's just really cool.
Takes you to another place, a fantasy place. Do you like animated movies, the cartoon movies? Do you like those?
I do.
Is that Maggie?
Yes.
I like them too. It just depends. They're all different. So let me ask you, where can listeners find your website?
You can find it at booksinablanket.com.
Booksinablanket.com. And what's next for Books in a Blanket?
We will give books to our local food bank and give to kids for their summer food bags.
Well, Harper and Maggie, you are doing a fantastic job. This proves exactly, what all our heroes of the week are doing. I mean, let me ask you one other thing before you do it. I mean, you when you started the program, was there a friend of yours? Was there something really was it just because kids didn't have books that made you do it, or was there somebody that you knew that you really wanted to help?
It was probably just because we knew that kids didn't have books, and that teachers are always asking kids, read 20 minutes every day, or read however minutes every day. And if you don't have books at home, what are you going to read? Right. You're absolutely right. That would be hard to fill out your reading log.
Well, I think your parents have done a great job with you as well, because they really taught you the basics of life. It really you learn so many different things. You learn about how to solve problems. You learn about many, many different things, and it's all through reading, and I think that's great for your parents to support you that way. Harper and Maggie, I want to wish you the best. I want to wish you a Happy New Year, and congratulations for being our latest Peace Fund Heroes of the Week.
Thank you. Happy New Year. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to both of you. Take care now.
Amazing.
Oh, I love it. I just love it. I get such a kick out of young adults being so entrepreneurial.
It's incredible. They're 10 and 12 now, and they were 9 and 7 when they started this. And obviously, I want to say thank you to Maggie and Harper, and also thank you to their mom Melissa for working really hard with us to get the interview set up today. We're so grateful and excited to have the girls on. And I just want to throw out some quick numbers about what Harper and Maggie have accomplished. In 2012, again, when they were 9 and 7, they distributed 119 blankets and 1,200 books. 2013, 330 blankets and 5,000 books. 2014, 802 blankets and 12,000 books. And this year, 1,270 blankets and over 15,000 books.
30,000 books. It shows that it can be done in your local communities. Everybody, if you've got kids that need it, if you've got books laying around, look at your garages. I guarantee you, all of you out there have stuff in your garage you will never use again. Donate it to your local organization that may be actually helping to bring literacy to children, because our kids in public schools need them desperately. There are organizations out there making a difference, as I mentioned just before we talked to Harper and Maggie. DonorsChoose.org. They're a charity navigated 4-star organization that makes it easy for anyone to help students in need. They basically, the public school teachers from every corner of America post classroom project requests on their site, and you basically can give her an amount to that project that most inspires you. And when they reach a funding goal, they ship the materials to the school, and that's really what they do. They give over $50, and you'll receive a handwritten thank you from the students themselves, which I think is a very well worth program where every dollar spent is used in a very worthy cause.
And it's really exciting too, because they also take photos of the project as it's taking place. You get letters from their teachers. You actually get updates to see exactly how it's helping the kids. So I love that aspect of it.
Well, yeah, that's what we really have instilled in all our programs. When we're doing the giveaway for the Microsoft Surfaces, we want to know how it's impacting the children as well. Obviously, whenever we get something, we want to see how it's really working and how we can do what we can do to improve it. I think that's really only going to be able to be understood once we get the feedback from the students, the teachers themselves, to see how the programs actually worked. There's also another organization, Adopt a Classroom, which is adoptaclassroom.org, again, a charity navigated 4-star operation. They increase opportunity for students' success by empowering teachers with community partners and funds to purchase resources for the classroom. Adopt a Classroom invites the community into the classroom in support of teachers and their students. And by adopting a classroom, donors from partnerships with specific classrooms providing financial and moral support. So that's another great organization out there that is actually helping make a difference. John, do you have any other updates before we actually continue doing this? Because I know we will run out of time again. We're at the 6-minute mark, I think, at the moment.
Well, as always, this has been another fantastic year for Peace Fund Radio, and I'm really glad that we were able to end the year on this note of being able to bring together Kimberly Moore with some of our heroes of the week to really make some real change for these kids in El Salvador who need it. From the very beginning of Peace Fund Radio, one of Adrian's biggest goals was to do exactly this, to take some of these organizations and help them help each other. And it's been fantastic. I have marveled all week long at the emails I've received from these heroes of the week. Emma Mogus from Books with No Bounds, Christopher Cow from Reboot for Youth, and Harper and Maggie today from Books in a Blanket, who are going to help us with this project. And we have some more heroes of the week who will be coming on board the project as well in the coming weeks. We'll have Rachel Lay on the show next week for Literacy for Little Ones, who also has some really interesting insights into literacy and education for kids. And it's been a great year for our show, and I'm just proud as always to be on it. And if you're heading into the new year and need a little bit of inspiration, go to our website, check out our blog.thepeacefund.org. You can find links to all of our guests, all of our heroes of the week. I would need 4 hours to list the programs, that end of the year programs that all of our heroes of the week have got going on. to help kids in need. It would just take too long, which is just fantastic in itself. So go check out those links, check out their Facebook pages, and you can see our heroes in action. And it's just amazing what kids are doing. And as again, with the case of Harper and Maggie today, 12 and 10 now, 9 and 7 when they started, and they've distributed over 30,000 books and blankets to kids in need. It's amazing what anybody can do if you just have a little bit of initiative and you believe in yourself, you believe in your project, and you follow through.
I think the other thing is to understand when you are giving is that you must, with our, for instance, the Peace Fund's Helping Hand initiative, it's a helping hand, it's not a handout. We want to make sure that when we are giving something, whether it's books, whether it's a light, whether it's education, whether it's whatever it is, that the family and the children that are receiving these become part of that program, that they become part of actually creating it, of raising funds for it, so that they feel proud about having not just been given something. Because I think, in a lot of places, and there are certain studies that show that when you just give people the stuff, at first they're very reticent to take it, but once they start receiving it on a regular basis, they start expecting it. And I don't think that's the right message to be sending anybody when you're just giving them stuff, because then afterwards it's like, well, why didn't I get it? And I think that's not the message we should be sending out. I just want to also end this because a new report by the Education Law Center found that in many states around the country, children who need the most support in order to succeed in school are actually getting the least. Not only have states been generally slow to restore the cuts to public school funding that they made during the 2007-2008 economic downturn, but there are often extreme disparities between the per pupil spending in wealthy school districts and low-income districts. Now, I'm going to basically state what I mean here. There are the four most progressive states, South Dakota, Delaware, Minnesota, and New Jersey, provide their highest poverty districts on average with between 30% and 38% more funding per student than their lowest poverty districts. Why does that matter? Well, a child born into poverty needs more public support than a child born into a financially well-off family. Study after study has drawn a direct correlation between student achievement and poverty. When a child is less likely to have educational resources at home, is less likely to have a well-educated parent with the time to help the child learn, and is more likely to come to school malnourished, it makes sense that public school funding steps up to compensate. Or so one would think. The reality is the way the school systems are funded, primarily through local property taxes, guarantees that wealthy districts will have more to spend on their children than districts with concentrated poverty, unless states intervene to require that money from wealthy districts to be used to help elevate children who don't have the same advantages. In other words, you'd have to ask the wealthy parents in that to say, well, some of the taxes you're going to be paying are going to go to the actual public school systems, which they might not like. But investment in low-income schools produce significant positive outcomes for economically disadvantaged students, which actually will help us in the long run. According to the recent National Bureau of Economic Research study, for poor children, a 20% increase in per-pupil spending each year for all 12 years of public school is associated with nearly a full additional year of completed education. 25% higher earnings and 20 percentage point reduction in the annual incidence of poverty in adulthood. So the facts are there. I think I want to end this show this week. It is the last show of 2015, Ethan? He's nodding at me at the moment. It's been a very interesting year for the Peace Fund and for Peace Fund Radio. I want to thank everybody out there, our heroes of the week, John Beerley, Bev Shahara, Carmel McPherson, Ron Myers, Joe Jones, Kimberly Moore, Kimberly O'Keefe, Chad Hawthorne. These are a lot of people that are working with us on the fund right now. We actually have a lot of celebrities now coming in next year on the fund that are going to be donating their time and their effort to making our children have a better future. I want to finish this show thanking all of them, because without you guys, we couldn't bring this show to the forefront. We couldn't do what we do at the Peace Fund, and as well as our web designers, our web developers, And in closing, I want to remind you, this is our closing quote for 2015 by Rita Pearson. Every child deserves a champion, an adult who will never give up on them, who understands the power of connection and insists that they become the best that they can possibly be. This is Adrian Paul and Ethan Dettenmaier. We'll see you in 2016.
You're listening to Peace Fund Radio with Ethan Dettenmaier and Adrian Paul, right here on LA Talk Radio.